Welcome back to another episode here in the Cozy Kitchen. I am so excited to share today's recipe with you. I feel like Sicily is on everyone's radar right now. The HBO show, The White Lotus 2, just wrapped up. It took place in Sicily, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a recipe that originates not only from Sicily, but also from my grandmother and her family's hometown of Catania. Today I'm going to be sharing with you part of the Sicilian tradition, which is pasta alla Norma. My 98-year-old grandmother, she is from Catania, Sicily, where this recipe originates from. This recipe is really special to me, especially now because my grandmother is getting older and she's not doing as well as she used to. And I just want to share this recipe with you in honor of her and where she comes from. But without further ado, let's get to the pasta. Just to give you an idea of what's going on right now in the kitchen, all you're going to need for this recipe is a large pot, which I have on the stove, which we're going to cook our pasta in. I'm going to be making today's recipe with something really special. Castarecce, 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 castarecce. We're making it with this pasta, all right? And it's a traditional pasta. It's from my grandmother's hometown. Any sort of shorter pasta like rigatoni, a penne, something like that would work really well with this recipe. You're also going to want one medium saute pan that has a little depth to it. This pan is going to be what we cook our eggplant in and make our super simple, super quick sauce. So in that medium saute pan, you want to cover the bottom with olive oil. You want about 1/4 of an inch of olive oil in that pan. We can turn that heat to medium high and get that oil warmed up so that once the eggplant hits the oil, it starts to fry up. For this recipe today, you will need eggplant. I have 2 small to medium sized eggplants. When dicing up the eggplant, I'm actually not going to include all of the skin. What we're going to do is just slice down, almost like a zebra. We're just going to create little stripes down it. That way we do include some of the skin of the eggplant, but we don't include all of that eggplant skin. So first, let's slice up our eggplant. Just so that you know what I meant when I was talking about the eggplant looking like a zebra. I mean, I'm kind of there, right? Almost. Once you add those stripes to the eggplant, cut it into little bite-sized pieces. You want to make sure that the pieces are bite-sized, and remember, once they hit that oil, they are going to shrink a little bit as well. Once you've diced up that eggplant, if that oil is still raising in temperature, what you can do is get some garlic. For this recipe today, you will need 2 nice-sized garlic cloves. After we fry our eggplant, we'll add in the garlic before we throw in our tomatoes. Once your garlic is chopped and your eggplant is in that oil, the next thing that you can do is get some fresh basil. You're going to need about 1 cup of fresh basil leaves. We're going to use them in our sauce once our eggplant and our tomatoes all come together. My oil that's been warming up in that pan, it's nice and hot. It's ready for my eggplant. Once the eggplant hits the oil, just hit it with a pinch of kosher salt, give it a nice toss, and then just let it sit. If your pan isn't large enough for all the eggplant, what you can do, like I'm about to do, is cook the eggplant in 2 batches. So I have my first batch in there. Once that batch is nice and golden brown, we'll take that batch out, set it aside on that plate with a paper towel, and we'll throw in our second batch of eggplant before we get our sauce going. Just make sure while that eggplant is in that pan that you're giving that eggplant a little bit of a toss every few minutes. While that eggplant is in that pan, let's talk about the sauce. A few things that you'll need for the sauce. The first thing that you'll need for the sauce, we already have taken care of. It's that garlic. So while that eggplant cooks, just make sure that you have your garlic ready. For this recipe today, you will also need about 1 cup of fresh basil leaves. So get out 1 cup of fresh basil leaves. You can give those a rough chop as well. The next thing that you'll need for our sauce are tomatoes. For this recipe today, you will need 1 28-ounce can of peeled tomatoes. My eggplant that's been cooking in that oil has started to turn a nice golden brown on the outside. Right next to the pan, I have a plate with a paper towel. All I'm going to do is transfer that golden brown eggplant onto that plate with the paper towel. Just hit it with another pinch of kosher salt while it sits there. Then I'm going to throw in my second batch of eggplant. Once you add that second batch of eggplant into that pan, if you need to add more oil, you can add more oil into the pan to allow that eggplant to fry. Remember, once that eggplant hits the pan, just to hit it with a pinch of kosher salt and allow that to turn golden brown. Now is also the perfect time to turn your water on. So you're going to want to turn your water on to high and bring that water to a boil. Remember, right before it starts to boil, add a generous amount of kosher salt. Adding that salt will just help flavor our pasta. Once you turn that water on and you bring it to a boil, just make sure you have your pasta set aside. Once that second batch of eggplant turns nice and golden brown, you want to add that second batch of eggplant to that first batch of eggplant as well. Hit it with another pinch of kosher salt and just let it sit. As soon as the eggplant comes out of the oil, you want to turn the heat down to medium. In that same pan that we just had our eggplant in, we're going to throw in our 2 cloves of garlic that we chopped up earlier and get that going in the pan. If the garlic seems to start to turn relatively quickly, what you can do is add just a little bit of water into that pan and it will help prevent the garlic from burning. Once that garlic hits the pan, you then want to throw in your 1 can of tomatoes. Once the tomatoes and the garlic are in that same pan, immediately start to break up those tomatoes and want to hit the tomatoes with a pinch of kosher salt. Finally, to that pan with the tomatoes and the garlic, we are going to add in our 1 cup of basil leaves. I'm going to throw them in with the tomatoes and the garlic, bring that sauce to a bubble, and then just let it simmer for about 12 to 15 minutes. Then we're going to throw in our eggplant. Our pasta will be cooked. It'll all come together. My sauce is simmering. My water is boiling. I'm about to throw in my pasta into that boiling water. We want to cook the pasta to al dente, and then we're going to remove that pasta, throw it in with our sauce as well as our eggplant, get everything all together with the cheeses, and then we'll eat. Once your pasta is in that pot and your sauce is simmering, the final thing that we need to do is just get our cheeses ready. We're going to add in our cheese right after we throw our pasta in with that sauce. For today's recipe, I'm not going to be using the traditional ricotta salata just because it's a little bit harder to find. So today instead, I'm going to be using a low moisture mozzarella cheese that we're just going to dice up. You just want to make sure that you have about 3/4 of a cup of diced mozzarella cheese. We're also going to be using 1/4 of a cup of grated pecorino romano. This is completely optional, but if you have a few extra basil leaves, it's nice to just take a few leaves, give them a rough chop, and then sprinkle them over the pasta right before you serve them. So if you have some fresh basil, go get a few leaves and just give them a rough chop. Set them aside as well. My pasta is just about al dente. Right before I throw my pasta into the pan with that sauce, I'm first going to add in that eggplant in with the tomatoes, the garlic, and the basil. Give that a quick toss. Then we're going to throw in that al dente pasta. Then toss in our cheeses. Get the cheeses mixed in and melted in with the pasta. And then we have nothing left to do but eat. I have my pasta alla norma right here. We top it off with a little fresh basil, a little pecorino romano cheese, and there you have a nice vegetarian pasta that comes together really quickly. And now you know one of the traditional pastas of Sicily. If you guys like this recipe, please like this video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. And I will see you guys very soon with more recipes. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go have some more pasta. Look at that cheese melting.